Welcome back to the Secrets of the Self-Made. Today I have Dr. Morgan Nolte, who is a board-certified clinical specialist in geriatric physical therapy. Recognizing a lack of preventative education and care that focused on reversing risk factors instead of just treating symptoms, Dr. Nolte founded Zivli, an online course and coaching program that helps adults reverse insulin resistance for long-term weight loss and disease prevention. So you will see so many parallels to what Dr. Nolte believes and what I believe. It's all about education, mental health, of course, combined with a very strong focus on metabolic health that is going to create longevity. And so I'm always so thrilled to have a chance to talk to people like Dr. Nolte. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to jump in. I know my listeners are going to soak up everything that you have to say. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thanks, Tracy. And just call me Morgan. Morgan's good.
Okay. All right. So I want to know a little bit about you first, Morgan, before we talk about the impact that you make on the world, which obviously probably has molded who you have become. So, but tell me a little bit about yourself in the earlier years. What led you into the healthcare field? And I'd love to hear, how do you manage, everything that you do? Because undoubtedly you are a very busy woman.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here. I feel like a lot of the podcasts I go on, I share a lot of really helpful information, but we don't really dig into my story. And because your podcast is a little bit more designed to let's get into the story of people's success. I'm excited to share that. It's been a road. It's been a journey for sure. I would consider myself very privileged growing up, just middle-class family, married parents, Christian background, and, got to go to college, got to go to PT school, just a really solid family life. But there were definitely some little T traumas and experiences and beliefs that I accumulated over my upbringing that really came to fruition when I started my own business. And we'll get into that. I went into physical therapy school, like any good physical therapist, because I wanted to help people. Specifically, I went into geriatrics just because I like talking to older people. I think that they're a wealth of wisdom. I really enjoy educating people. 8 out of 9 of our grandparents were alive and at our wedding. So they've always held such a special place in my heart. And so once I got into geriatrics, I went through my residency program. I got really good at treating people with multiple comorbidities, right? Heart disease, diabetes, dementia, the gamut. And it was really heartbreaking. It was really sad dealing with strokes, dealing with heart attacks, dealing with deaths, dealing with dementia, having the same conversation in the same way, with that person over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like I wanted to do more. I always felt like I wanted to reach people earlier and prevent the diseases that I was treating. I didn't quite know how, because they don't teach you that in physical therapy school. They teach you how to treat the illness, how to treat the disease, very similar to Western medicine. And after I had my son, who just turned 5, I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, first of all. So I don't think you ever really know until you have kids how it's going to affect you. And then real quick, I found out, I don't actually want to be a stay-at-home mom. Love in pieces, but I'm not built like that. I was too bored. My brain was going crazy. So I started my business when he was 4 months old. From the ground up. I built 7. I have no business, but I have no tech background. I had no idea what I was doing. But I knew I wanted to help people in this way. I said, if I'm going to work, I'm going to do something I'm really passionate about. And I can't do that in traditional physical therapy. It's not covered by insurance. So that was kind of an easy decision for me.
Yeah.
Now, the limiting belief in my head was that I never wanted to start my own business. My mom had her own business. She was a lawyer. She was an attorney. And she did family law, so divorce, custody, very stressful things like that, and worked all the time. I mean, bless her heart, love her to pieces. She's like one of my best friends. but she didn't make it to my second grade Thanksgiving program. That's a little T trauma for a little second grader. Right. When all the other moms are there and your mom's not there. She missed picking me up from school. My dad had some mental health issues, so he couldn't be very emotionally present. And I just saw my mom work all the time, and I wanted more of her, and I wanted to be able to give that to my kids. And so I had that limiting belief starting a business that I can't be a good mom and a present wife and run a successful business. I had that fear. So we'll talk about kind of getting over fears throughout this episode. Yeah. But if you want to do anything great in life, you just have to learn how to redefine that relationship with fear. And that's what I want to talk about that today. I mean, we're talking about insulin resistance a little bit too, but I just felt like called to talk about that on your podcast specifically with your audience.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. And so I'm so glad that you have such an emphasis and such a passion for that crossroads where mental health and metabolic health, are at. It's so important that when we're talking about health, we're talking very comprehensively. And I mean, no doubt you came to that conclusion through, the experiences that you had growing up and, the gifts and the opportunities, albeit that you didn't think of them in that way at the time. Now you have contrast to, really better understand what mental health, mental fitness actually can look like and what it actually takes and how to create it, because you experienced the contrast to that at a young age.
Yeah. And I think I also experienced the contrast of health and so my grandparents were generally healthy, but then I was working with 60-year-olds who were acting like 80-year-olds. So I saw that contrast in health span and lifespan too. And then in my own family, my dad's a type 2 diabetic. I ate so much sugar growing up, like you wouldn't even believe it. I for sure had a sweet tooth, and I had to really overcome that within myself. And I think the really pivotal moment for me came after I had my son trying to lose the baby weight. And so I was simultaneously researching weight loss and disease prevention, diabetes prevention. And I came at the crossroads of insulin resistance. And I thought, holy cow, this is the missing piece that I've been looking for. Because not only will learning how to live, I call it a low insulin and inflammation lifestyle, not only will that help me lose the weight, but that will help the people that I want to work with prevent diabetes and heart disease and dementia. So if I can figure this out for myself, I can help them figure it out too. Mm-hmm. And I did, I lost the baby weight and I started my business on that premise. Mm-hmm. But what I realized was the strategy is not enough for most people. I think that there's a certain subset of people, if you tell them the information, they don't have any, crap underneath the surface to deal with. They'll just take it and run, and they'll implement consistently and they'll see awesome results. But for so many people, myself included, we have some limiting thoughts. I call them limiting beliefs that we need to overcome in order to see that sustainable habit change that it takes to really keep the weight off, to maintain good metabolic health. Mm-hmm. It's not really, you don't want to jump from one diet to the next. You just want to adopt a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so that's really where I started digging into the mindset. Mm-hmm. But then another crossroads, what I didn't realize was, wow, the same limiting thoughts I have about business, these people have, my clients have about losing weight and about changing their health habits. So if I can master this for myself and figure out how to stop obsessing over what I don't have, and start appreciating what I do have, and start controlling my emotional responses to things and people, and live from my true sense of purpose, then I can help other people do the same. And so it was the same thing. It's just for me in my personal journey in my business, the strategy came first, and then the mindset came. Okay. So I don't know kind of where you want to take it, but that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Oh, I love that. And I get asked all the time, it's like, which one comes first? I often get asked which one comes first. Is it the metabolic health or the mental health? Mm-hmm. Which one are you going to kind of target first? It is, for me, I really do look at it as kind of a very synchronized process, because it's a journey for both. So it's not like you're checking the box and now I have amazing mental health or I have amazing metabolic health. It is an ongoing journey. And I love how you have become masterful at your process by applying your process to different areas of life. I believe that applied learning is where it's at. And so if you can find those different places to apply the way you're operating or your systems, that's where you're going to be able to really refine that system, make sure it's working for you, and truly become masterful at it. And then you have this like unstoppable confidence that you literally can overcome any problem. You can create or achieve any goal because you have this way of doing it, this way of operating, this system that I always talk about it like it's in your back pocket. You have that kind of confidence. You can pull it out and apply it under any circumstance. And so I love that you noticed early on that correlation between, oh, I could apply this to business, just like I'm teaching my clients to apply it to their health.
And my relationships, like my relationship with my husband. So if we kind of backtrack a little bit, growing up, my mom and dad's relationship was a little bit unique, and there was a lot of resentment between them. And so I grew up thinking that resentment in marriage was normal. And I resented my husband big time for the freedom that he had. And what I felt like, okay, I'm going to take on the blunt of the care. And he helps so much. Like, let me just tell you this, like we have a very equal relationship regarding like what we do with the kids and stuff. But early on, I had that, and I just was miserable, and I had no reason to be miserable at all. He was fantastic. It was all inside my head.
Yeah. And so that awareness was huge for you. And, you quickly concluded where that came from. But even if you can't figure out why you have these limiting beliefs, if they're just there and you have the awareness that they're there, that's a place to start. I mean, Morgan talked about little T trauma. Oftentimes the big T trauma does require you to kind of go back into your past and work with a healthcare professional that can help you unwind that. But some of the little T trauma, personally, I don't believe that it's always necessary to go backwards to discover where this belief is coming from. Sometimes, it's obvious, but if you just have the awareness of the limiting belief and really how it is actually limiting you, how it is becoming an obstacle in your life, that is a quantum leap in the right direction. So you have this awareness that there was messaging, you were brought up in a household where you felt that resentment, and you interpreted that as this is what marriage is supposed to be like. And therefore you just kind of role played that out until was there something that like created the heightened sense of awareness, like, oh, wait a minute, this is not getting me the results that I actually want from my life. And, why am I believing this?
Yeah, there were so many things. It was a really formational couple of years, I would say, after I started my business, just because all your stuff comes to the surface whenever you're trying to do something. And again, my husband's an incredible man. Like, my grandpa's always like, marry your best friend and marry the best man that you've ever met. And I did that. But one day he came home and he was like, I'm feeling like Dawson, our son, he's like, I'm feeling like we're just getting in your way. And like, you're resenting us because you're a wife and a mom and you can't just like pursue your business all the time. And I was like, you're right. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. I
am resentful. And that's not how I want to feel. And like my business, it's like I was helping people, but it's not like it was thriving. And a lie that I had believed was also from my parents' marriage. And I realized this in, it was a church session, like a church counseling session called Restoring the Foundation. And it was a 3-hour in-depth, I would say like a little bit of a prayerful ministry, but also probably some like hypnosis and other things, the tools. And I realized I had that insight in there that it seemed like my mom was never enough for my dad. Like, even though she did so much, like they would fight about money. They would, just fight about him not getting enough of her time. And I realized that that was another subconscious belief in my marriage that was holding me back in my business, that I always felt like I have to prove myself instead of like, I'm worthy of his love. And that's what he said. He's like, I love you no matter what. Like, I just want you to be happy. And trying to do this business and trying to be a new mom, it seems to be not making you happy. And I was like, wow, like I have literally manifested this. And that was a pivotal moment when I started reading about manifesting and like the law of attraction, from like Esther and Jerry Hicks' book, Ask and It Is Given. I was a living example of a negative manifestation, like worrying about all the things and then like manifesting the bad relationships, business not where I wanted it to be yet. And I just realized, okay, so if I had the power to get myself here, I have the power to get myself where I want to be.
Yeah,
And
I was just thinking that. I'm like, I wonder how many people interpret manifestations into only creating, almost in a magical sort of way, the good things that you want in life.
Everything
and almost lose sight of that we're manifesting all day, every day, right? And so you just really need to step back and kind of look at, how am I manifesting? And am I manifesting what it is that I want? Like, again, it's all about awareness. So bravo, my friend. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So after I read that book, Ask and It Is Given, and I started to apply it to my own life, I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which was another game-changing book for me. And in it, he talks about your personal faith formula. I literally use that with my clients. I kind of modified the language because it was written in the Great Depression era. And so I'm like, some of my patients, like, they're like, this is too formal for me. I said, okay, let's lighten up the language a little bit. But realizing, and I have literally read that every day for 2 years, I think. I don't know how long ago it was that I read that book. I modify it, it grows, it changes. But what I realized was a couple of big things. Like, I am in control of my thoughts. I am in control of my emotions. Therefore, I don't have to try to control external circumstances. So I was using anger to try to manipulate my husband to do, X, Y, and Z. It's just unproductive. And so a lot of people do that with their kids too, like using anger, using that stuff. Right. So I am in control of my emotions. I am in control of my thoughts. I am in control of my destiny. I am enough. That's another book by Marissa Peer that I highly recommend, especially for people who struggle with weight or self-confidence or self-esteem, is I Am Enough. That was a really good book too. And then the other thing is I had to redefine my relationship with fear. Like, fear was in the driver's seat of my life, fear of failure, fear of missing out on time with my son, fear of success. Like, what am I going to, like my mom, what am I going to have to give up to have a successful business? Am I going to have to give up afternoons with my kids? Am I going to have to give up seeing their school things? And then a lot of fear of judgment and criticism. As you know, whenever you're building a business online, there's going to be people out there that don't like what you do, and that's okay. And recognizing, like, I don't have to be for everyone. The people that are supposed to find me will find me. And the people that I'm supposed to help, I will help. And so the other thing that really helped me, Tracy, that I think helps so many people, is releasing time. So I was brought up to like make these SMART goals, and I set these audacious business goals that you don't know what you're doing. And when you're starting out, and it's just totally unrealistic for me. And so once I realized I can release that time, I no longer put time on my goals, and that really relieved the pressure. Yeah. So if I can kind of dive into those, like how I learned how to control my thoughts, was I learned about the law of attraction and how each thought that we think produces a frequency of energy that produces the emotion. And so I was used to ignoring my emotions, pretending like everything was okay, numbing out a little bit, like on food, but it was at that point healthy food. But I was a little bit afraid of what I was going to find. And I was afraid that if I found something, that I wouldn't know how to navigate it. And so now I say, like, your negative emotions are a blessing, because they're an indicator that you're kind of going in a direction that's not setting your future self up for success. I've heard them described as your internal lie detector test. And I think that's true because God, source, energy, they only want what's best for you. And so we're given the blessing of those negative emotions as like I call them like a U-turn sign from the universe saying, hey, let's turn that thought around into something that's going to be a little bit more productive. And so I started to not be as critical on myself. I started to give myself the gift of time and of patience and of grace. And recognizing, okay, a big part of controlling your thoughts is repetition and mindfulness. And so I started working in a morning routine. I brought it. I think I might have left it in the car. Like my personal faith formula starts with like, I expand in abundance, love, and success every day. I am a present, calm, intentional, and engaged mom, loving and supportive wife, and successful business owner. And I just keep adding things to it, such as like I take energetically aligned action. Because when my son was young, I used to tell people I'm losing more sleep over my business than my newborn. I would stay up all night, like working on the blog post. Like, that is not how I want to act. Like, that is not the type of business that I want to grow and develop. I want a business that allows me to help people, but also allows me to be present with my family and take care of myself. And so I was very intentional therefore, like from there on, about not checking email at night, not checking email on the weekend, like creating those boundaries.
Yeah.
Now that was a big one. So figuring out how to start identifying these limiting thoughts, figuring out what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. So back to the law of attraction. I love the pen example. You know, every desire is two things. It's what you want on this end of the pen and what you don't want on that end of the pen. So when you pick it up, you have both ends and you just have to shift your attention to what you want instead of focusing on what you don't want, which is exactly what I had been doing. So I'm like, okay, I know this works because I've been focusing on what I don't want and I'm getting what I don't want. So let me just focus on what I do want. And then, you know, it does work, but it takes time.
Right. Like you spent your life at getting this similar type of result.
Yeah.
And by doing, you know, operating one way. So wouldn't it stand to reason that you can operate in the exact opposite way and at least try and just see if you can start creating different results for yourself?
Yeah. And gratitude really helped me. I really practice specific gratitude every day. I wrote it down for a long time. Now I'm just intentional to literally practice gratitude every day. And it's cool because it's like passing on to my children, which I love. I love that I can pass these lessons of self-modulation and emotional tools onto my kids. So that was a really big thing for me to understand the law of attraction, that it is real, that we cannot bypass it, that we have to learn how to control our thoughts and our emotions if we want to get the outcomes that we want. Now I'm trying to think of the other tools that I found really, really valuable. Meditation is something that I'm still working on. It's hard for me to be still and silent. I'm such like achiever is like my number one strength. And so I grew up with the belief that we shouldn't waste time. We should be busy, like, you know, and so reframing meditation has been important for me, but then getting over that fear of failure, like you can apply what I'm going to say in any realm of life, relationships, weight loss, health, business. And when I redefined it as when I'm fearful, when I'm worried, it's because my attention is placed on an undesired future outcome that hasn't happened yet. I'm literally making up that outcome in my mind and I'm focusing on it. And that's creating the worry and the fear. And then also recognizing any guilt or shame are based on past thoughts. So if I'm guilty about, you know, overeating on a weekend, or if I feel shameful because I don't have a binge, but some of my clients do struggle with binge eating. Like if they had a binge and they're feeling shame around it, that's because your attention is placed on a past action. But in the present moment, the only response, I think, you know, is gratitude. Like, thank you for this present moment. And so learning how to redefine that relationship with fear and that everything is happening for me, not to me, to teach me whatever lesson that I need to learn to grow and change and evolve as a human being, that was a game changer. So I stopped, you know, thinking, why isn't this working yet? And I started thinking, it's okay. I'm learning whatever lessons I'm supposed to learn. I don't have any time-bound goals anymore. So my clients love releasing the time-bound goals from weight loss. It's just like, I'm working to get healthy. I'm working to change my habits. I recognize that it might take longer than what I would like it to take, and that's okay. I'm releasing the time-bound expectations. And what that does then is it frees them up from the restrictive crash diet mentality. And then they're like, okay, now I'm cool with like the slow, steady, sustainable changes that I need to be cool with, which is exactly what I had to do with business. Like I had to stop looking for like, quick wins in business and just start building the systems and the structure and the processes and building the team, and structuring my schedule in a way that was sustainable. Right. And so it's just a very beautiful overlap there that I realized with my personal life and my clients. But getting over that fear of failure, redefining failure, every single day, Tracy, in my personal faith formula, I say, I guard my energy, I fortify my frequency, I don't fear failure, success, poverty, criticism, judgment, or missing out. And it doesn't mean that those fears don't pop up. But what it does do when I read that to myself every day, it's like I'm putting on my glasses for the day and I'm seeing the day through the lens that I want to show up as. And then if I have that fear, I recognize it so much faster. And I just say, oh, you don't fear criticism. If I see a negative comment online, I just delete it. I don't feel defensive, like I need to like prove myself or anything. It's just, I just delete it. This happens too, if I snap with my kids, which happens a lot less now than it used to, I'm a present, calm, intentional, and engaged mom. And then I really like practicing non-reaction and non-judgment and non-attachment. There's one more. There's another. Do you know the other principle? I can't remember. It's from
no.
Okay. I can't remember. It's another good one that I can never remember. But non-attachment, I think, is a really important skill. Like a lot of us are attached to a certain expectation, or attached to how we think it should be by now, or attached to how other people are showing up, even attached to our own ego. Right. And so I think releasing all of that and just working on being mindful, working on being just grateful, and working on being present and feeling how I want to feel. It's like every day I say I prioritize my emotional, spiritual, mental, physical health. And I choose to think and do things that make me feel good. And I am giving myself that messaging every single day. Sometimes it was twice a day in the beginning, just to really break those ingrained thought grooves of I'm never doing enough. I'm not enough. When is it going to work? This is never going to work. I'm wasting my time. I'm not doing the right things. All of those things that were just, I was drowning in them. So those would be the big things that really helped me, and that I now like help my clients understand more about the law of attraction and cause and effect and the law of vibration. And I like to say, you were saying like, well, what comes first? The metabolic health and the mental health. I say it's the two sides of the same coin, and I have clients that just get the strategy right away and go for it. And then there's one, bless her heart, she's been with me for 2 years. Everything else in her life has improved, but she hasn't lost any weight yet. She's lost all the mental weight. Well, not all of it, but so much of the mental weight. Her relationships are in a better place. She has so much more peace of mind, but she's still working on releasing the time-bound expectations of weight loss, because she had to change her internal state. I like to say you can't master your physical state until you master your mental and your emotional state. Yeah, and so that's what she's been working on for a couple of years. And now she's finally starting to change her physical state, but she still struggles with emotions of impatience and time-bound goals that drive her to more restrictive measures that then like rebound the other way. And so we just, I said, okay, let's add to your personal faith formula. Like I release all time-bound expectations, and then a couple of other things that she needed to. So I think once you get used to really paying attention to your emotions and your thoughts, and once you recognize the power of self-repetition and telling yourself what you want and how you want to show up every day, like that was a game changer for me.
As long as it's believable, right? Otherwise, if it's not believable, then you start to operate from a place of skepticism. Yep. So that's an important piece, is to make sure it's believable. With your client, one of the things that we've been working on at Self Made You is acceptance. for where we're at. And a great exercise is, it sounds a little cliche, but, celebrating the small wins, celebrating where you're at, celebrating, the fact that you showed up for the call, celebrating, just celebrating that you woke up this morning. And I think that kind of ties back to gratitude, of course, but we lose sight of that. And I think it's especially helpful for those people that have those time-bound goals that seem to be hanging them up.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as I think from your own clients, we listen to language a lot and we read between the lines. So we're looking at their facial expression, we're looking at their posture, we're looking, do they believe what they're saying? If they don't, how can we modify the language to make it more believable? Right. And so I like to say, if you really want to reach a goal, your believability has to be from 0 to 10, as high to 10 as possible. And I think in order to do that, you can release the time or you can adjust the goal. So instead of I prioritize my emotional and physical health every day. That's true to me. But for someone just starting out, that might not be true to them.
Right.
So could it be something like, I'm working to prioritize my emotional health every day. Right. I'm on my way to prioritizing my physical health every day. I really we have a START framework that we teach people for their morning mindset routine, and it's an acronym. So S is say your personal faith formula. The T is for your thoughts and obstacles for the day. So really thinking ahead, what repetitive thoughts have come up that have held me back? What are some obstacles that might get in the way of me following through? The A is 1 to 3 action items. So small things like, I'm going to drink my water today. I'm going to go for a walk today. I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. tonight, whatever they're working on. The R is recognize your wins, just like you said. So what is at least one thing that you did within the last 24 hours that you're proud of? Because when you practice being grateful and proud, you're going to attract more of that to you. Right. And then the T, did I already say thankful? No, I didn't. The T is thankful. So what are you thankful for? So START is a nice little helpful acronym. If someone wants to kind of start this mindset side of things, just apply it to whatever avenue that you want to go down, I think is great.
I love it. I love a good framework. I'm all about them.
I know you do. So those have been some of the most helpful tools for me. And I just can't emphasize enough how important this is. People who struggle with their weight for decades, I think, do so because they don't understand the power of their thoughts. Yeah. And the fact that your thoughts determine your emotions, which determine your actions, which determine your results. Right. And so if anyone's listening and they've been in that boat, please listen to what we're saying. Go check out those books Ask and It Is Given and I Am Enough are great places to start. Think and Grow Rich is another good one. It's a little bit more dense, I would say. Yeah. And then the Abundance book, if people struggle with a scarcity mindset, I thought that was a really good book too.
Yeah. Untethered Soul is an excellent one. I'm thinking that have you read that?
I haven't read that one. Oh, you might have told me that one before, but I haven't read that.
Yeah. And then Eckhart Tolle, I'm missing I'm sitting here looking at my bookcase because it's a real obvious one that I feel like you've read because you were pulling some of the principles from it.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of overlap in these.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But my gosh, before this, I was re-listening to one of my own lessons actually, which sounds kind of strange, but I'm I want to have kind of a refresher on the law of attraction. And you gain something. So even if you've read a book before, go read it again, go listen to, if you're in Tracy's program, go listen to some of her lessons again, because I guarantee you're going to take new things. And one thing that I find so helpful, especially for people at the start, is to pretend they're a seed. We're moving to the farm in a month. And so we have a couple peach trees on the farm. Oh, and we got those for my mother-in-law for Mother's Day years ago. And for years, they didn't produce any peaches. This is last year they produced some, and then this year they're producing some. So recognize this thought work. This is underground work. People are not going to see any physical change in you for a while, but you will start to feel a change. And that seed underground is growing and growing and growing. And finally, it's going to sprout, and eventually it's going to blossom into this beautiful plant, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that we're so conditioned by, Amazon and automatic lights and automatic sinks that everything should be fast and easy. And it's like, if it's not fast and easy, then I'm doing something wrong, or I'm missing something, or there's a secret that I don't know about, or I'm broken. And it's like, that's not true.
Right.
Nature works slowly. So just envision yourself as a beautiful plant. You are working underground sometimes, and eventually you're going to blossom and bloom. But even after you do, you need pruned. And that's an important part that I think I'm constantly working on, like pruning my own habits. So for example, not eating my kids' food after dinner, like just not finishing their food, honing in on my macronutrients again, really being sure that I'm eating enough protein. I'm really working on not having alcohol. Like I would have maybe a drink a week, and I felt like I don't need it. I was doing it out of habit. Optimizing my workouts, like not snapping at my kids. I did that once this week. And, it's like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Why? It's all of those are blessings, because it still shows us where we're not totally free.
Yeah.
And so once you recognize, okay, it's just an opportunity to grow in that area. It's an opportunity to show my kids how to apologize and ask for forgiveness and all that stuff. But once the plant grows, it still needs pruned. So you're never there. And I think that that's a big myth about like long-term weight loss or like long-term health stuff. Christmas happens, like Hanukkah, Christmas, birthdays, graduation parties. You're always going to be gaining a pound or two that then you have to kind of lose again. So it's important to recognize that thinking that you're just going to lose all your weight and be done, or thinking that you're just going to get to this destination is a mirage. Like you're not. It's a constant daily effort to show up and be the best version of yourself and set your future self up for success. And so I think I just love like your messaging on it, because you're just very real. Like this is an inside out process, inside out.
Yeah. And it truly is what your inner self is prepared and wants for you. So if you're feeling any of the resistance, it's only because you're out of alignment with your truest self. Like all of those things. So it doesn't have to be thought of as this huge effort, the commitment to consistency doesn't have to be hard. If you really tap into your truest self and understand that this is actually what your truest self wants, there shouldn't be any resistant feelings. So it is really kind of getting into alignment with your true self.
I think one thing that prevents people from doing that is that all or nothing mindset. Like if we're talking from like a health standpoint and weight loss, it's like, or a desperation, like, okay, I've neglected my health for decades. Now is my time. Like I'm going to do all the things perfectly. And that can kind of lead to some overwhelm, which
and if you use your example as you are pruning, so, you could think of that as, you've been through quite the mental health journey, mental fitness journey. You're constantly evolving into that next best, person, I guess, the next best version of yourself. But you see yourself in these pruning stages where it's only then that you made the decision to, do I really even want a drink a week? Whereas a lot of other people will think, eliminate all the alcohol, eliminate all the sugar, eliminate all the flour, watch calories, make sure the workout is, up to par. Like it is that all or nothing thinking. And if you see how Megan's story has unfolded, sorry, Morgan, I'm sorry.
It's fine. My best friend's name is Megan and Michaela. So I've got that my whole life. Yep.
If you see how this has unfolded, and I mean, I think arguably all of us would say, my gosh, she is such a beautiful, beautiful example of what it means to be self-made. Just notice that it's in that pruning stage that she's made the decision or is contemplating the decision of maybe eliminating alcohol. So it is this evolution, and she's understanding herself better. And then maybe in a year, she might decide to add it back in. And that is back maybe in alignment with what it is that she truly wants. She gets to decide that. And she's going to make those decisions based on how she's feeling. Does it feel like a push or does it feel like a pull? My gosh, Morgan, you have done such an extraordinary job.
Thanks.
Of sharing with the audience. I cannot thank you enough. Like you truly have such an eloquent way of sharing. And it is so obvious that there are higher powers at work working through you to deliver this message, and that you feel very called to do this. So I want to extend an immense amount of gratitude for your time and for your passion for this. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
First off, thank you. That's the nicest thing someone said to me in a very long time. My website's the best place, zivli.com, zivli.com. And if people are like, that's a really weird name, why did you choose that? It was available for a trademark. I could afford the .com domain. And Ziv means live in Croatian. I am not Croatian, but all of the English words were taken. And then the LI stands for low insulin and inflammation lifestyle. So live a low insulin and inflammation lifestyle. They can check out my YouTube channel. It's just Dr. Morgan Nolte Zivli. Podcast is Reshape Your Health. You're a guest on mine, so that's going to air kind of in the fall sometime. But yeah, the websites, we have a lot of great free resources out there for people, and a couple programs or one-on-one options if they want to check those out too.
Excellent. I will for sure be there checking this all out. So thank you so much for being here. It's just been a true pleasure, and I can't wait to stay in touch with you.
Me too. Thanks so much, Tracy. I appreciate you.